This is my review of the Dell G15 5520, a gaming laptop which I bought directly from the Dell website. At the time it cost me just over £1,200, though the price will vary depending on the day as they tend to go up and down all the time. This particular model has the 12th generation i7-12700H processor, which has 14 cores and 20 threads. 6 of those cores are performance cores and the other 8 are efficient cores. It has the Nvidia GeForce RTX 360 graphic card with 6 GB of memory on board. The screen is 15.6 inches with full HD resolution and 165 Hz refresh rate. It has a 1 TB SSD hard drive, 16 GB of DDR5 memory and a 6-cell 80-watt integrated battery. And the whole thing weighs around 5.5 pounds, so quite a heavy laptop as you would expect from a gaming laptop. So let's take a look at it. So this comes in a kind of a dark grey colour or charcoal colour. It might look black on the screen, but it's actually a dark grey or charcoal colour. I think you can actually get a different one, a special edition one, which comes in a light grey colour, but this particular one is a dark grey. So it's an all plastic design, not a single piece of metal on it, unfortunately, despite the high price. So all plastic, both top, bottom and the inside. So this is what it looks like on the top. You just got the Dell logo, get quite a rough texture on the top, slight grooves in the top and so on. There's obviously the hinge base and all. Underneath, we can see we get these big vents. So you've got one big vent along the bottom. So this is obviously what the processor and the graphic cards are located in this kind of region. So you get these vents on the bottom, on the side here. And again, these are not vents, these are actually the speakers. The speakers are on the side. And on the back, we can see 2 vents on the back and so on. So in terms of connectivity, we have on the right hand side, we have 2 USB ports, which I believe are 3.1. Again, we get a vent and a G logo. So just the 2 on the one side here. And we get a Thunderbolt port, another USB 3.1, HDMI and the power cord. And on the left hand side, we just get the Ethernet, which flips down like that. And the microphone jack port. There is no SD card slot on this particular laptop, which is disappointing considering the price. So if you do have SD cards, you will need to buy a small adapter like this, which just plugs into the USB, and you just stick your SD card in there, either normal size or the small size. This costs, I think that costs about £12, £12 or £13 from Amazon, which actually the performance of this is actually quite good compared to my old laptop. I think I used to get around 30 megabytes transfer speed on my old laptop, and this actually transfers around 90 megabytes per second, so over double the speed, which is quite good. But again, no SD card slots, which is a little bit annoying considering you may want to add photos for photo editing and things like that. So that's the top and bottom sides. Let's have a look on the inside. So this is the standard UK keyboard layout. Again, all plastic, same color again. We got the one thing I did notice straight away when I bought this laptop, and I did upload a video, is that when I started using it, I found the edge along the palm rest, along all of it, even the corners, they're quite sharp. They're not rounded off. They're not too bad, but they are quite sharp. I think if you rest your palms on there, using the touchpad for say several hours at a time, you may find that this digs into your hand after a few hours. I don't think every single person will find it a problem, but I do. I mainly use a mouse on my laptop, but I did find that if I do use it for a couple of hours, that does eventually dig into your hands, which is annoying because my last laptop from Dell had a nice smooth edge all the way along the palm rest and the corners, but this one is quite a sharp design. Everything about this laptop actually has pointy corners on the edge of the monitor, even around the back. All the corners are quite pointy. It's quite a pointy laptop. Everything's quite pointy and sharp. So again, that's quite annoying. You spend over £1,200 and Dell can't even bother to make sure that this edge along here is nice and smooth so your hands don't get irritated by using it for prolonged hours and so on. In terms of the touchpad, I don't know whether it depends on what kind of model you had before, but my last 2019 model, it had quite a large touchpad. It's quite bigger than this one. I think the reason this one is smaller is because you've got this vent across here, which has pushed the keyboard down slightly. So I'd probably say this touchpad is probably around ½ an inch in both directions. I say my other touchpad was probably around there and there. So it's slightly smaller, which takes a little bit of time to get used to. And again, the texture of the touchpad is smooth. I personally prefer one with a slightly rough edge. I think they work better in the hot weather. But this one is smooth. I do find after prolonged use in hot weather that it becomes a little bit unresponsive, but not a major issue. Just again, if you use a mouse, not a problem. So again, keyboard's quite nice. It feels quite good. Feels quite high quality. It's got backlit as well, so it lights up if you press the button up here. I think it's this button here. You press that button. There's two different versions, both the white color, two different brightnesses, so you can use it in the dark and so on. It doesn't come with a fingerprint reader, so when you start up the PC, if you do have to enter a password, you have to enter it manually. My last Dell did have a fingerprint reader on the power button, which is by here. The power button's over here this time. So every time I just started it, just put your finger over the fingerprint reader and it would open up. This time I've got to enter a password or a passcode. Which again, for the price, you kind of wonder why doesn't it have an SD card slot or a fingerprint reader? Surely they're not that expensive to add. So yeah, so the monitor again is just 15.6 inches. The hinge is just one big hinge along here rather than two hinges on the ends, which I find can be a little bit flimsy and tend to break after several years. So it feels quite sturdy, it opens up and down without any major issues. So there's time to turn it on. So I'd probably say startup time for this particular laptop is around 30 seconds, but that's with additional software added, such as antivirus software and seed cleaner and so on I have added. So let's start it up. So power button's there, like I said. Just the camera a little bit. So once it starts, naturally you have to enter a password. So once it loads up, you're pretty much good to go. There's no kind of waiting around. Even though I've got some programs started up in the background, it's really fast. I think probably, like I said, about around 30 seconds, maybe 20 seconds to start up. Probably without the additional software, it probably would start up in around 20 seconds. If even slightly less than that, maybe. So that's the screen. That's what it looks like. That's the full brightness, I think. I just check. So yeah, that's the full brightness. That's the dimmest mode, which is fine for in a dark room, and that's the brightest mode. So again, it's bright enough. Maybe some people would prefer it's a little bit brighter, but in my personal opinion, the camera's probably not picking up as well as my eyesight, but that's bright enough for me in a well lit room as well. So. In terms of the quality, again, it's full 1080p. Personally, I would have preferred 4K, but that costs a little bit more. I would say compared to my older laptop, I say the colors are slightly better. I say it looks, they look a little bit richer in color and so on. So again, yeah, a decent screen. So in terms of performance, again, like I said, I cannot give you any advice on what it's like for gaming, as I bought this for video and image editing purposes and so on. So if I just open up, say, a web browser such as Firefox, and it starts up pretty much within 2 seconds, even with extensions added, which on Firefox is notoriously slow to start up. And I say my previous Dell, which was again an i7 high-end spec laptop, I'd probably say Firefox took around 6, maybe 7 seconds to fully load. This time it starts in 2 seconds flat, even with add-ons added. Again, if I say try Microsoft Edge, again, 2 seconds, even with add-ons added, maybe even 1 second. So everything fires up really quickly. Again, I mainly use this for video editing. I use DaVinci Resolve. DaVinci Resolve works, you know, if you've used it before, you might know that DaVinci Resolve is notoriously slow unless you have a really high-end PC. I would say DaVinci Resolve works fairly well on this laptop. I wouldn't say it's perfect, but for most things, when you're not adding all the special effects, it works perfect. When you add some effects, certain effects anyway, it gets a little bit slow. But again, overall, good performance, just not excellent performance. So in terms of the hard drive, I've actually got a screenshot of the performance of the hard drive. So I did this a few weeks ago. So the maximum speed it can read is just 2,400 megabytes per second, and the maximum write speed is just over 1,800. So again, not the best SSD hard drive you can get. I think with Dell and manufacturers, they tend to put in the cheapest ones they can buy, basically. I think you can buy ones on Amazon which will have double, if not triple, the speed of this this SSD. But again, it's fast enough for the average user anyway. One thing I will say about the SSD is that even though it's 1 terabyte, which is a decent size, there are other models which have just 512. Before I did buy this, I contacted Dell and I asked them, can I add a second SSD? And they said, yes, of course you can. When I opened up the laptop, when I took the back of the laptop, I found there was no slot for a second SSD. There is actually a mounting bracket on the motherboard, but there's no actual slot to plug the SSD into. So, and I checked on the internet, there's another person on YouTube which has said exactly the same thing, that there is no second slot for an SSD. So you cannot add a second SSD to this computer, even though Dell told me you could. And with most laptops these days, you can add a second SSD, but this particular model, despite its high price, you cannot. So yeah, if you do buy one with say 512 and you want to upgrade it with a second SSD, you cannot do that. So just be wary of that. I'm not sure whether you can. Obviously, you can change the existing SSD. I'm not sure what the maximum size is. I think it might be 2 terabytes, but again, with all the hassle of transferring your operating system and your files, it's kind of annoying that you cannot add a second SSD, which is pretty simple to do. So yeah, that's a downside with that. Another problem I did find as well is that the power cable port, to show you the power brick now. This is the power brick, so quite a big power brick. It's actually bigger than the last power brick I got from Dell. Again, quite a thick cable. So when you do plug it in, I'm not sure the camera can pick that up from where it's looking, but it doesn't quite go in all the way. And I did check again on the internet. This is normal. It doesn't quite go in all the way. But an issue is it comes out quite easy. So if you do put this on your lap or on your bed, and you move around, because it's quite a thick, heavy cable, it tends to pop out quite easy. So that's a little bit annoying. So yeah, that is quite annoying from Dell, why they haven't, made a power port which, grabs the cable tightly and doesn't come out so easy. So. But it's not a major issue. You just have to check that the power port is in. I have found probably on multiple occasions that it's fallen out, and my battery level's gone low and I haven't realized that it's fallen out and so on. So I suppose in terms of battery life, when I contacted Dell, they said between 6 and 8 hours, depending on usage. I would probably find web browsing, watching videos on YouTube and things like that, you probably average around 6 hours. You might squeeze 6.5 hours if you're really lucky. That's with the screen brightness turned to its lowest setting, mind, not full brightness. So around 6 hours average, web browsing, things like that. High demanding programs such as video editing software, probably between 1.5 hours and 2 hours. I probably average 2 hours using DaVinci Resolve. And that's kind of a mixture of processing and just editing. So again, around 2 hours on high demanding programs. I'm not sure whether this thing would actually work when gaming. I know my last laptop didn't work on battery on gaming. It only worked when you plugged into the mains. So again, if it does work with gaming, probably 1 to 2 hours would be your average, and so on. So in terms of heat and fan noise, which can obviously be a problem with a gaming laptop, this laptop is surprisingly quiet. I mean, this entire time it's been on now, even though I know it's not doing anything, it hasn't actually produced much of any noise. I would say when you're just web browsing, watching videos on battery, not plugged in, on battery, I would say it's quiet most of the time, 90% of the time. In terms of heat generated, I would say a little bit of heat. Most of the heat comes from the back end. The back end gets hot. The front end remains remarkably cool and so on, even though the battery's in this kind of location. It's the back end that gets hot. So yeah, on battery, just using a web browser such as Firefox or Chrome or Microsoft Edge, it remains very quiet most of the time. You will get the occasional fan kick in for 10, 15 seconds, and then it might not kick in again for another 15 minutes. But it does depend on the actual temperature of your environment. I mean, at the present moment, it's summertime, it's quite hot in the UK, it's been a heat wave and so on. And I have found that the fan noise does kick in a lot more, say when the temperature is above, 24, 25 Celsius and so on. When you plug it into the mains, naturally it uses more resources, more power. It's going to produce a little bit more heat. Turbo Boost, Intel Turbo Boost kicks in a lot more often. Like on battery, Turbo Boost doesn't kick in that much. When it's plugged in, it does produce a little bit more fan noise and a little bit more heat, even using Firefox and things like that. But again, it's predominantly quiet. Now, when high demanding tasks such as video editing software, again, the fan noise isn't massive, but the heat it produces is quite intense at times. I mean, I've had this on a table and I've put my hands at the back, and the heat coming out of it is quite hot. It's by far the hottest laptop I've had. But again, the fan noise is actually quite reasonable and so on. So yeah, I mean, in terms of using this laptop on your lap or on your bed, obviously, like I showed you before, it's got quite a big vent along here as well. You're probably okay, just about okay using it on your lap or on your bed, as long as you're only using a web browser and things like that. Naturally, when you're doing something more demanding, it needs to be on a flat surface where it can draw in the air and dispel it properly and so on. So yeah, overall, it's a fairly quiet laptop, and it doesn't produce too much heat on light tasks. But when you do use it for more demanding programs, it can get quite hot, and it definitely needs to be sat on a flat surface and so on. But overall, fairly quiet most of the time. So yeah, I think that's pretty much most of the kind of things I'm going to say for it for now. Again, sorry I can't comment on the gaming performance and so on. I have got a few games on my old laptop, so I may transfer them and do that for another video. But overall, it's a decent laptop. It's very fast on most things. Certainly for open up average applications, it opens them up within a matter of seconds. So yeah, overall the performance is really, really good. I say the only major downsides is that you cannot add a second SSD. The front of the laptop has a very sharp edge, which can irritate your hands. Again, I don't think that'd be a major problem for everybody, but for me personally, I do find after using it for a few hours, it can irritate your hands. But if you use a mouse or anything like that, it's not a problem. But yeah, overall, I don't think I showed you the backlight, the keyboard. I don't know if it's going to pick it up. No, I don't think the camera can pick that up. But again, the backlight comes on in the dark. So yeah, speakers, I mention them. They're on the side. Again, the speaker quality is very, very average. I wouldn't say that anything special. So yeah, speakers are pretty pretty bland and boring in my opinion, the speakers. So yeah, overall, it's a decent laptop. It does have a few faults. Biggest one, probably the sharp edge, no SSD upgrade, and the power cable pops out quite easy. But other than that, it's actually quite a good laptop. And I think in this kind of day and age, for £1,200, you're probably not going to get a much better deal than this. If you can buy it for that kind of price, I think certainly the processor and the graphics card, you know, that's kind of the average kind of price for that kind of laptop. So yeah, overall, a decent laptop, but far from perfect. Thanks for watching.